Sorry. Then I didn't quite hear the question, but yes, now I'm hearing.
So you could hear me not really okay.
It's implicit hack.
Well, implicit, but
Heard noise. Acknowledged heard noise. Acknowledge something.
as usual, we will give a few minutes for the late joiners to arrive, and we will start the session around 5 past the hour.
Hello, Edgar. Hello, Christian. Hello, Carlos. Nice to see you here. And Matthew.
Hello. Same. Nice to see you.
So I just shared in the chat the link to the minutes. So if you guys can join and contribute, that would be highly appreciated.
Hello, are you here?
Oh, hello. Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, because my browser got frozen, and so I don't know if it's working again. Okay, that's good.
I got some Larsen when you guys were talking.
Ah, you got some what? Some noise?
Larsen, shoot, some Larsen effect.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that's called like this.
Okay, we'll see if it happens again. It was Alex between you and at that time it was you and Laurent who had the mic open.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyway, so I guess it's time. Do you want me to do the intro this time, Alex, or do you want to do it?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Pascal.
Okay, so this is an official LP1 working group intro meeting, and so welcome you all. And as usual, since this is an official meeting, we have to abide to the not well. So the not well has the usual patent IPR policy, whereby if you're aware of any IPR on something which is being discussed today, please disclose that IPR during the meeting or let the chairs know after the meeting. And then please be aware of all the other best practices that we have at the IETF, including anti-harassment. So if you witness some bad behavior or some behavior which is not matching the code of conduct and the harassment procedures, please let the ombuds team know. And the link is actually given on this page. So usual reminder, the minutes are being captured and the link is given here. It's always helpful, in particular if you speak, that you visit the minutes as they are being taken to ensure that what you wanted to express is effectively captured. Anyone is welcome to contribute to the minutes at any time. So it's a very useful thing to open this link. The meetings might be recorded if there is any demand. Actually, this one is recorded. If you have a problem with that, please refrain to speak. And the attendance is automatically captured since you logged in the Meetico meeting going through the IETF data tracker account. So your presence is actually logged. For the agenda today, we'll have a little bit more time than usual on the administrativia because we want to discuss IETF-113. So we'll see where we are and how much time we have. Then we have 15 minutes by Anna on the progress on the NB-IoT document. I understand that there is very good progress there. So Anna, you'll be speaking at 4:20. And then we have a presentation by Carlos about the SHIC header compression over 822.15.4 and the role of the dev and device and application layers. That will be also 15 minutes. And we have a little bit of time. Laurence, you did not send slides or request a slot, but still, I thought it was good to have a little sync on where you are on the data model. And Juan Carlos told us that you would not be there, but if there is any status after my review on the Compound Act document, it's always welcome as well. One little thing about the Compound Act is I initially was the shepherd for it, but we might have to switch, so we'll discuss that. But at least I prefer the review, so that match is still valid for answers. So if there are authors of the Compound Act, and the Juan Carlos is not there, but please consider the review. So we had a good number of action items last time. So Alexander, there were two things on your side. And I know the second one has been done. For the first one, I've not seen you call for adoption for the OM draft. Did I miss something?
No. So the point was, so the first thing is that we checked if we have, if it was adopted, and actually Dominic did the lookup, and he didn't find. I mean, we didn't actually call for adoption of the document, and what we said was that he'll need to integrate. So the team received some remarks, and he needed to integrate them and submit as -02 and then call for adoption of that document. But I don't think that I saw this one submitted. So here probably the point would be, do we call for a for the current one to be adopted, and then of course the modifications can be integrated later, because Dominic is going to be quite heavily loaded, I think, in the next week. So
And there is not so much emergency, right? Due to your second point below, which is that you've pushed the publication date to December of 22, right?
Yes.
So
that's
Dominic is loaded at the time. It's not the most urgent thing.
okay.
Then there was a to-do for me, actually, the Shepard review for the compound ACK, which I did. It might or might not be the Shepard, but it's actually a review, so I think it's good. Dominic is not with us. It was to recheck if Laurent's change on the data model addressed the issues, so we'll have to check that on the mailing list and republish the OAM doc. And like you have not seen it, actually, it's not republished. So we'll have to see with Dominic about those issues. Laurent, you were to republish the data models. Maybe you were waiting for Dominic to confirm something? Because we said we wanted to work with last call with the target date of IETF.
Not really. I am a little bit late in the draft, but I published a new version of the Young model, which is in the GitHub repository. It has a new date on it, so it's easier to recognize that it's a new one. And I made all the edition to be compatible with RFC format. It means that all the lines are short enough not to go after the last column. So it's compiled without any error message right now. So now the next step is to take the draft and to do copy and paste to put them into the draft and add one or two comments for the new things that have been added. So it's not that difficult. It's quite boring, but I try to do it before the end of the week.
If you manage to publish the draft to the data tracker within this week or very early next week, I guess we can still call for a workgroup last call with the target date of the of Tuesday of the IETF, which is our meeting.
Okay,
so it's up to you. Otherwise, we'll start the workgroup last call at the IETF and we'll complete it 1 month after the IETF.
Okay.
As you know. And Laurent, you discussed that you would suggest a hackathon for the IETF on I guess on the data model.
Yes, or on Chic and data model. Yes.
So
we
have
have.
You do something? Is it still in Niger?
No, I register myself and I say that I will work on Chic, but I don't think I put an item in the hackathon calendar. So I will put it. And we have event that will help us. He knows very well OpenChick now.
Okay, that's really cool. Workgroup status. So we, Alexander effectively edited the milestones. So now the OAM document is expected at the very end of this year. And the rest is pretty much the same as it was. Still, we have, remember, we have the Sigfox document, which was expected some time ago and is still not there. It was kind of blocked by the compound hack, but compound hack is mostly done. So hopefully the Sigfox document can go for last call as well very soon. So what's new on the documents? We have 2 new publications. So the NB-IoT that Anna will talk about next, and version 3 of the compound hack, which is what Juan Carlos promised us. And effectively, Juan Carlos has done the old new text edition as we suggested. So that's why I could perform my review on it. So the review has been disclosed on the mailing list, and we are waiting for comments. And then there is, that's my mistake. I thought it was not there, but yes, it is. Effectively, there is the new version of the OAM document by Dominic, which was published on the 9th. So I mean, that should be good enough, Alexander, to call for adoption. Do we agree?
Yes, perfectly, yes. Agree.
Okay.
So,
So let's mark it for us to do for next time. And then we have extended the introduction for a few minutes to be able to discuss about IETF-113, which is in 1 month in Vienna. So first thing, if you plan to attend remotely, please be, and from the US in particular, please be aware that the US will have shifted in summertime, but not Europe. This week and the week before IETF are the 2 weeks which are always weird every 6 months because the US shift before Europe does. So Europe will still be in UTC +1. So it's going to be 12:00 UTC, 13:00 UTC +1. Okay, and it's going to be 21:00. I'm sorry, the other way around. 5 a.m. I guess in Pacific time, and 8 Eastern. So be aware. It's 1 hour less time shift between North America and Europe than it is usually. Basically, I just wanted to know in the small group that we have here, do we have a lot of people who plan to be physically present at the ATF, or is it like people expect to be remote as we did for the 2 recent years? It's just to get an idea, about the
yes.
attendance, physical attendance.
So Laurent says that he will come. On my part, I will definitely not come, although I will be very happy. I would have come with the greatest pleasure, but at that time most definitely I'll have a new kid on the block. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to. I mean, I'll try to. Remotely I can attend, of course, but not in person. That's for sure.
Because my current plan, Alex, was not to be physically there either, but I really thought that you would be. So actually, I discovered this. So yeah, I'll check. Maybe that would be a reason for me to. Eric, I guess you guys expected that at least one of the 2 chairs would be present.
I was hoping for this, and basically it looks like Laurent is coming. So Laurent maybe, or whoever steps forward, but getting somebody in the room plus me, because I will be in the room, basically do the welcoming and a few words. Because I think that's important to have a human being in the room as well in a hybrid meeting. So I said the name of Laurent because he replied the first with "I will come," but anybody can do it, and the chair needs to agree, of course.
So do we have other names? Anybody in this call who wishes to be, who thinks he will be physically present? Please. Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess at least on this call, Laurent is the best bet because he's the only one. So, Laurent, would you mind sitting on the chair's seat?
It's a great honor.
Oh yes, it is, certainly.
I will do my best.
Okay, Laurent, thank you very much. So I'll see Eric. I might discuss again, see if I'm coming, but the plan was still not to come. So in that case, Laurent playing the role would be very appreciated.
I just have a look, and there is a lot of spicy restaurants in Vienna.
Yeah, there is a special one, you know. We will send an official call for presentation for this meeting. Be aware that we have asked for only 1 hour. You might have seen that the slots for 2 hours were scarce, and people were asked to strongly justify if they really wanted 2 hours. We didn't think we would really use well 2 hours. So we will be calling for 10 to 15 minutes max slot, depending on which document that is. If you ask, so we will be asking, if you want to present physically or remotely, and what kind of duration you expect, and we might have to shorten your duration. Certainly, it will be below 15 minutes. So the meeting will be in Grand Park Hall 2, and it's going to be, like I said, 1 p.m. local time, noon UTC. And with this, that's the end of those slides. And we'll keep the AOB for later. So Anna, the floor is yours. If you remember, you have to click on the slide share on the top left of your screen. You see where there is the end. Next to the end, there is this paper. You need to click on it. No, you don't send your screen. You share a preloaded file if you don't mind. So on the top left, below your name, there is those 5 icons. One is an end, which is join queue, and the next to it is share preloaded slide. Please click share preloaded slide. Okay, I will accept it. There you go. You should get it now.
Hello. I have a window that makes tell me choose a deck to share. Did you hear me? Yes, this one. Share. Do you hear me?
It's very well, Anna.
Okay. Thank you. So we have finished to make all the modifications to the NB-IoT configuration for this version. So next slide is here. The first thing we have done is we eliminate the delay tolerant problem that we think we have to do a new document. That's what we have discussed 1 month ago, I think. So we will create a new document for these big frames to be sent. And so we finish with all the needs and the modification for the configuration of cheek fragmentation and compression over the NB-IoT network. And so the new thing in this version 7 is that we make the rule ID space variable size for compression and for fragmentation too. That's the only modification, the 2 big modification we have done. And we think that we are ready. We are ready for this last call, but perhaps we need some reviewers before or I don't know if we make the last call and we get reviewers, or if we have reviewers and we make the last call.
Usually, we like to find one reviewer who will do a deep review, just to extract some maybe typos and if there is a big bug before everybody reports it. So it's kind of nice to have one deep review.
Yeah.
Would there be a volunteer in this call for doing that deep review? It's a very interesting application in BIoT. A lot to learn from this draft, if you have not read it recently. I see Carlos, I see Wildcard's co-author. Sergio? No, nobody. Carlos? Yes? Do you mind, Carlos? Oh, I see you come in and go out.
To ask, which would be the deadline for this review?
Maybe the next IETF, if that's okay.
Yeah, I
So
think
we can actually discuss your review commands at the IETF and discuss whether we are ready for last call.
Okay, so yeah, I think I can provide this review by the next IDF.
Okay, so I make it a to-do. Many thanks. That's really appreciated, Carles. And I write it as a to-do. Okay, I say to do a review by IETF 113 session. And if possible, a little bit better so the authors have a chance to look at your comments before the actual session, so we can effectively discuss them during the session. Let's read it. So, Alex, Anna, what do you think? Carles provides his review by IETF. At IETF, we look at the comments. We consider if the document is ready based on the comments, and we do the last call.
Yes, we are in the deadline.
Yes, sounds really very reasonable, and thank you very much, Carlos, for taking that to do, because yes, we are almost there with that document. So thanks a lot, Carlos, and thanks Anna and Edgar for taking the document to where it is now.
So that was all that I have.
Okay, now many thanks. So please release the sharing. You or I can do it for you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next presenter is Carlos. Carlos, I guess you know how to grab the slides. I uploaded them for you.
Okay, so okay, can you hear me?
Yes, on my side, it's a little bit lower than the others. If there is a way you push your mic a little bit, but otherwise, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so well, this presentation is about a topic for discussion on the use of the dev-and-app roles when trying to use SCHC header compression over 15.4 networks. So this is related with a draft which Anna and I are co-authoring, and it's intended for 6LOW, but of course it's using SCHC, and it's very related with LPWAN. So, well, just as background, so probably everyone in the call knows well these concepts, but basically we're going to talk about the dev-and-app roles. So RFC 8376 is the first one that defines dev-and-app. Dev would correspond to the constrained device like the sensor, actuator, and so on. And app would correspond to some entity on the network side, such as an application server. So RFC 8724 basically uses the same terms and also adds a little bit details regarding the definition. And also in that RFC, we can find the figure with the architecture that you can see in the lowest part of this slide. So we have several devices with the role of deb on the left, and they send packets to some destination, which is the app on the right. One thing to keep in mind that later will appear is related with the terms uplink and downlink, because in the same RFC, uplink and downlink are defined based on dev and app, because uplink means from dev to app, downlink is the other way around. So later we'll also refer to this. So the point is the dev and app roles fit very well the LP1 scenario, of course, because they have been extracted from there. And it means that a SCHC entity knows whether it corresponds to dev or app when it participates in compression or decompression. So in RFC 8724, the compression rules for some IPv6 and UDP header fields, and actually those are the prefix, the IID, and the port numbers, are actually expressed in terms of deb and app. So they are not expressed by the positions of these fields in the headers. So this is when we write the rules for compression and decompression. This is a sort of optimization, which has the advantage that the same rule can be used for compression or decompression for both directions. So when a dep has to compress, it's clear that the source address or a source port corresponds to the dep address or port as written in the rule, and so on. However, well, this is the only way in which those header fields are expressed in a rule, in terms of dep or app roles. So now the question would be, okay, now what happens if we try to use chic header compression in 15.4 networks? Well, in some cases, we may have star topology networks where we may have constrained devices talking to some network side app. So in that case, the current model with the dep and app terms fits really well also. However, maybe some concern or some questions may arise in mesh topologies, because there may be peer-to-peer scenarios where maybe there are, say, two constrained devices talking to each other. And in this case, maybe it's not so clear which is the role that will correspond to each, because both might be candidates to be considered as dep, at least considering the definition strictly. So some example, let's assume some nodes, A and B, a light sensor, a light bulb, that need to talk to each other, maybe through one or several hops in the middle. So yeah, maybe we might try to still use the same terms, dep and app, for expressing the rules for header compression and decompression. And maybe we could say, okay, let's assume that the node on the left will be dep, the one on the right will be app. Okay, perhaps this might work. Maybe then we need to add another node in the scenario, node C, which has some control on the threshold setting of the light sensor. So then there could be a question, okay, which is the role in this case for A and C in this kind of interaction when they exchange messages? So perhaps we could say, okay, maybe the node A could be app here and node C would be dep, but maybe this creates problems. And maybe it would be easier to say that, well, let's try to make nodes only have one role for all the interactions they have. So maybe it would be better to say, okay, yeah, by doing like this, node A is only dep, the other nodes are only app, it might seem to work. However, maybe the question is, can we ensure? Yeah, can we ensure? Yes.
Just to let you know, we've been working. We have an architecture document, which is work in progress. It's a draft IETF, but we effectively have evolved from the dev to app, which is now just one case, to also a peer-to-peer case, where the two devices play some kind of equal role, some more symmetrical type of networking. And I mean, maybe you could have a look at the architecture and comment on it, because we wanted to effectively serve the kind of use case that you have in mind here. So just keep that in mind as you present. But the LP1 architecture effectively have also the peer-to-peer kind of capability.
Yes, so thank you for the comment. The point is then how we define the rules for compression in this sort of peer-to-peer scenario, because yeah, I perhaps I should revise again the architecture document, the LP1 architecture, but I don't think the details for that, or that my problem, let's say, is solved at the moment in that document. So yeah, maybe.
You have a question by Laurent, if you see it. I mean, there is Laurent in yellow, if you don't mind taking his question.
No, I think it's an interesting problem, because I don't think it's too much technical, but it's the way we name things, and it has a big impact, because in the rule we have this name, dev and app. So I think it's very difficult to change that in.
Did we lose Laurent?
Because I got some warning messages. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We lost you for a minute and then you're back.
Okay. So I said that it's in the data model we have this. So if we change, it has to be done very, very quickly, and I think it will be difficult to do it, and it's not a technical problem. It's just a naming problem. So maybe we keep it and say that this one is dev, this one is up, and it really depends in your.
Yes,
So-
Anna? Sorry, Laurent. Have you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Anna?
Yes, for me, I mean, it depends on who is sending and who is receiving. And A or any node could be dev or app, depending on what he's doing. That's my idea. I don't know. Perhaps I'm wrong. But A could be dev if he's sending to B, and A could be app if it's receiving, or vice versa. I mean, it could be playing the both roles, and it has rules for when he's dev and rules when he's app.
So in that case, perhaps actually continuing from this comment, it means that one option would be to stick to the dev and app roles. It's the first bullet on the first half of the slide, and then the idea is we need to add some additional information to each node to indicate whether it is going to be acting as dev or app for any possible endpoint, let's say. Is that the idea?
If you really have a point-to-point symmetrical exchange, and remember, for instance, we have a draft on PPP where we used SHIC to compress high-speed lines. And it's between two arbitrary devices, and so the traffic can be back and forth. So if I hear Anna well, you would become dev at the time you send a frame, and app if you receive it. And so the next frame might be going the other direction, in which case now in the other direction, the sender is dev and app is the receiver. If really that's the case, then yes, I agree with Laurent. We need to say dev is so refer to the architecture to say it can be peer-to-peer, in which case dev is the peer-to-peer sender and app is the peer-to-peer receiver or something like that. Laurent?
So just one point here before Laurent. I joined the queue just before. So yes, I mean, I think that here we have probably a fundamental question to discuss, and it is as Carles said. So the notion of dev and app are very clearly defined when we are in a mesh. Oh, sorry, when we are in a star topology, or even in a point-to-point. We can we have 2 points, so we can stipulate pretty clearly. We can define this is the dev and this is the app, right? But in mesh, what happens in an intermediate node? So I think that the sender and the receiver themselves, the 2 endpoints can be pretty clearly. We can pretty clearly define what dev and app means. But what happens in intermediate nodes, that might need that information to route the message. So this is a question that I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to map this one very, very clearly. So yeah.
Yes, it depends really on for example, if you go back to the first your drawing, you may have also a triangle. So this means that the 2 apps can talk together. The one, yes, this one. So when you have app, you can have also B and C that can talk. So
Yes, I mean they can if A can do routing, then B and C can talk.
no,
Right.
no, but
And
it's you have a mesh. I think everything here is on a mesh, and they can communicate each other. It's not a star topology. So maybe the threshold control can also send message to Lightbulb directly. And so here you, in that case, you have app and app if you keep the same name for every device. And so I think in that case, you should find a direction, or you fix a direction, and you say, for example, A to B will be uplink, and so this way, this one is a dev and this one is an app. A to C will be downlink, so this one is a dev and this one is an app. And of course, the name dev and app has no meaning, but we have to force a direction, because the direction will tell you if the dev is in the source or in the destination.
So what you're telling, Laurent, if I understand well, is for each SHIC relationship, there needs to be a sense of direction, so we can say who plays the role of dev and who plays the role of app. And it has to be agreed when A starts talking to B. I will be dev, you will be app, like master slave on the bus or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I guess we can update the architecture to reflect that, but then there will be a need for negotiation, right? I mean, that needs to be for arbitrary peer-to-peer, peer-to-peer. If one must be named dev and the other must be named app, then we need to negotiate, and that might require some particular exchange on some particular networks when it's not obvious, you know. It's implicit on typical LP1s, but when it's not implicit, probably you're saying that we need to have either a configuration or an agreement, a shake-hand, at the beginning of the SHIC relationship.
So in that order of thought, if we have let's say like the easiest solution will be to actually have a bit in the packet, and that bit says, well, that's an uplink, or it's a downlink, right? And that can be like, you don't care if it's really an uplink or downlink. It's just that the sending node can say, hey, well, I think that that's an uplink, so I set the bit to 1, and so now I know that the def address is going to be used as a for the source IP, and the app is going to be for the destination, right? And if the bit is set to 0, it's the opposite. And in the network, you can just say like the sender is just marking the bit, and maybe intermediate nodes can change the bit if that doesn't match their rules. I don't know. Yes, Laurent?
So for me, it's not a question of bit, it's more a question of normally when you have SHIC, you know your traffic, and then you create rules for that traffic. And so during the rule creation, you have to say you act as this link will be viewed as an uplink or downlink.
But Laurent, if you have a large number of devices and there can be a lot of communication, peer-to-peer communication between those devices, any to any, and they just discover. Again, I'm thinking about the P2P case, right? You have many robots in a factory, and they discover each other. It might be, if you want to do peer-to-peer robot to robot, then they will have to name one of them the dev and one of them the app. Sometimes it's more clear what uplink is, but sometimes it's not. In which case, I guess they will have to negotiate. Maybe it's out of scope for what we've written, but still it has to be negotiated or configured. Sometimes you take the smallest MAC address, you do anything. But for some links, there is a natural sense of uplink. If the robots talk to the SCADA or something, then we know that the robot is the dev. On the other hand, if a robot talks to another robot, then there needs to be a tiebreaker to say who will play the dev.
Yes, but in fact, in the rule, that when for example, a robot has an IP address, And so when he will apply a rule, he will have to match the source address will be equal to the dev address. And so this way it's selected.
Yeah, but he needs to know dev is himself, right? So that before robot A talks to robot B, they must agree on who plays the dev and who plays the app. Because there is no sense of up and down. Oh, we lost Laurent. Okay, so I guess we will. Laurent is back? No.
No.
I guess we understand the prime. We need a little bit more discussion. I think my current understanding, Carlos, it can be addressed. Sometimes there is an obvious sense of uplink. Sometimes there is none. And when there is none, we can say that there needs to be an out-of-bound negotiation discussion to select who is dev and who is app. And there are all sorts of tiebreakers in the industry for that sort of thing, including the smallest MAC address. Right, so it's already doable, but then we have to say it's done out of band and separately from what we're doing, naming who's dev, who's app.
Okay, so well, thanks. I think it has been great feedback. I was considering like maybe there are other approaches like using other terms like source destination, but I understand that we may prefer to stick to the dev and app terms. Also, they are in the data model and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's if I send you a frame and then you send me a frame, at some point one of them will still be the dev and the other will still be the app. Means we can. I see it very. Initially, I thought that was what Anna wanted to do, but I realized it's very hard to switch the role on every frame. Whether I'm sending to you or you're sending to me, the sender becomes the dev. It can be kind of hard. So it's probably easier to just in one relationship to stick to one is dev, the other one is app, and we do both bidirectional transmission, but we remain one is dev, one is app. No.
Okay, so yeah, I guess that we may need to work on perhaps negotiation or a way to who is dev.
We don't necessarily want to standardize it in this group because it might be that each deployment has its own way.
Yeah.
Like I said in 15.4, you could say if you're doing peer-to-peer, then the smallest MAC address wins. The smallest MAC address is dev, something like that, and you're done.
Just one thing about that question, Carlos. If we say that in peer-to-peer case, def is to be interpreted as source and app is to be interpreted as destination, does that solve the issue, in your opinion?
Well, the point is that using dev and app is a way to use a single rule to allow compressing in both directions. So it's like if we use something like source and destination, we would have like twice the number of rules. We would duplicate the number of rules. So that's drawback also. So yeah, I think maybe we might need to stick to perhaps dev and app and make clear for each interaction, let's say, between two peers, who is dev and who is app, maybe.
Yeah, I guess we have to think that through and discuss it on the mailing list. Carlos, do you mind coming back to us at the IETF with a 5-minute slot on this?
Yeah, great.
So we'll discuss it on the mailing list and hopefully we'll conclude at the IETF. And that will certainly end up in the architecture document and yes, it will impact the YAC document as well, whatever our decision is. Okay, so again, we lost Laurent. That's a bit sad that it seems to have connectivity issues. Is this your last Sorry.
Just one question then, Pascal. Do you see there is some echo? I'm not sure if it's from
Laurent
me.
is back.
Yes. So what I wanted to say is that maybe we can address this as an extension, right? I mean, to say, okay, well, we will be addressing the peer-to-peer shake in a second document, and maybe don't not postpone the data model. Because if I understand correctly, like it's the source and destination solution proposed by Carlos, it's like it doubles the rules, which is exactly the same thing as adding one bit to indicate the direction, right? So we have the sense that here we are fighting about a bit, like we're fighting on one bit of compression. So basically, to indicate the direction in some way. So probably we could end up having a document which is in line with the architecture that states, well, in a peer-to-peer setup that works like this, and then you need this addition to the data model.
If we define a bit, we need a standard track document just for that bit. It's one way of doing it. And yeah, completely acceptable, but we need one more draft. On the other hand, if we say in the architecture that, so that's basically sender becomes dev, right? That's option one. And actually it was option two in Carlos' slide. And the other option is we designate for each peer-to-peer relationship, we designate a dev and an app. I don't know which one makes the most sense, but if we designate a dev and an app, then we don't need a new bit. We don't need to change data model. We just need to say, hey, who plays the role is either obvious in a deployment, or it has to be assigned before shake starts at the beginning of the relationship between those two nodes.
Okay,
It's not
perfect. Yes, I don't. I mean, the way you say it, I don't see any like obvious thing that would make it not work. But let's discuss it and see.
Yeah, we have the two options.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the two options. But in the end, if we go for the bit, then that will impact the data model, because we will need to declare that bit as well. So we need to talk soon between now and the IETF. We need to agree on this.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just one point that is also important is the scope of the rules or the naming space. It means that do all the devices share the same rules, or we can say that a rule space is an association between two devices. So if we have this, then it means that we have only here we can have a direction. If we say that everybody is in the common rules, then it's more difficult to say who's up, who's down.
I mean, I'm not sure I follow you. We can have a rule. So every device, let's say we have a large network of peer-to-peer. Every device are basically the same fabric, but they can talk to one another. So that could be a single set of rules, apart from the IP address themselves, right, or MAC address or whatever. But for the traffic they do, etc., there could be a single common set of rules, and they would just have to decide when A talks to B, whether A in the rule 5 is the dev or is the app.
Yes, but in the point-to-point scenario, there is no problem. And here you raise a good point, because in the point-to-point scenario, if you have, for example, a mesh, in fact, you have at point-to-point between all the nodes. On this point-to-point, you apply a set of rules. Now, if you say I have a mesh and the rules are common to several nodes, here it's another problem.
Yes, I mean, if you define that the rules are between two devices only, then you fall back into the thing that we already know how to handle. Like it's a peer-to-peer. So I think that the question here is, okay, well, if it's that setup, then you have no problem. I mean, you treat it as the peer-to-peer document of Pascal. And if you do a mesh, then that would suppose actually that you have the same set of rules shared by all members of the mesh network. And then you need to solve it. Is it that, I mean,
Yeah,
this is, I understand your question. Yes. Okay.
So basically, let's describe the two solutions. Carles, since you're the one who built this slide, would you mind sending an email to the mailing list explaining the two solutions? I mean, how to discover dev and app. Is it sender, which basically the one who sends the frame, which sets the bit and is the dev, and no, and the other one when there is a reply or is, I don't know, is the app. It's still unclear to me. No, or if basically it wants A talks to B over a mesh, then for that particular peer-to-peer relationship, they have to decide before they start talking who will be dev. And I can talk to 5 people, and some of them I will have negotiated them dev, and others I will have negotiated them app. Doesn't really matter, but we have to negotiate that so I know what my role is when I look at the rule.
Okay, yes.
So yeah, it would be ideal that we really understand, taking maybe some examples, which one of those two ways works best. And if that means we have a bit which says, oh, I'm using rule 5 acting as a dev, then yes, we need the bit. But if we need the bit, that impacts a lot of documents. And so we need to know if we really want that. So, okay, that was great, Carles. I mean, thank you for bringing it, because yes, we want this P2P. We have the scenario for it, but you make us realize that we are maybe missing signaling for it. So that was very important. Thank you, Carles, for raising it. And with this, do we have any other? Oh, Laurent, you wanted to speak? You're still in the queue?
No, and even for the next item, I have nothing to say.
That was interesting, Laurent. Can you compress that?
Sorry, I said that even for data model progress, I already say things. So
okay, you already made your report. So we're good then. I guess we conclude this meeting in time. Thank you all for attending. And so, as you can expect, we will be sending out a request for, well, asking you to request for slots if you want to present something at the IETF. And we'll send that email shortly. Okay, thank you all. And I guess we have a meeting in 2 weeks, right? I mean, is it correct? I think we still have one in 2 weeks.
Yes. Let me check. But I think that we do have.
Okay, we'll confirm that on the mailing list anyway. So you guys take care and enjoy your
Thank you.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Pascal?